Hello, I want to talk to you today about freeing yourself from the stories that are trapping you where you are. Effectively, kind of releasing yourself from the fixed ideas that are limiting you to what you currently are or what you think other people need you to be. And in so doing, releasing yourself to your true potential, okay? If there are things that you want to do, if there's a little voice at the back of your mind that speaks somewhat quietly, that yearns to do something. But as soon as that voice starts to speak, a somewhat louder voice inside of you slaps it down and kind of says, and rationalizes it away. That's very important. So what's going on here is there are a series of fixed ideas which are being used as a protective racket to stop you taking actions that apparently you want to take, but that are being spoken in a somewhat quiet voice, okay? It's not in keeping with what you should be portraying to the world, okay? People are going to laugh at you. Any of these kind of stories, you don't have the money to do it. You don't have the time to do it. There's a whole variety of excuses that you can give yourself. And they're all comfortable delusions, because what they do is they keep you inside your comfort zone. So the problem is, if we stay inside our comfort zone, we kind of wither and die. Yeah? You're either growing, expanding, learning, freeing yourself, developing, or you're kind of stagnating and ossifying and dying. And it's very, very hard to strike a balance, because this little voice, as I say, when it comes up, the rest of you kind of wants to snap it down. It's uncomfortable getting outside of your comfort zone. And kind of everything that is around you, your social sphere, is expecting you to remain consistent with how you were yesterday. And so there's a great deal of reason to stick with doing what it was that you were doing yesterday, except that feeling of the lack of joy, that lack of essence, of beauty, of passion, of poetry, of living, of true living, which demands you to get outside of your comfort zone. Okay, so how do you do that, right? And this is the thing about rewriting the story. So you begin by having to take a kind of a stoical approach, which is, I don't know myself as well as I think I do. I don't know with certainty that my stories are true. I must be able to find a way to step outside of that a little bit. You can never intellectually prepare yourself for doing something which is ridiculously unlike you. Okay? Instead, what you have to do is take a step in the direction. And then what you do is you realize that it didn't go as badly as the story says it should have. Okay? People didn't judge you in quite the way that you did. Or even if they expanded their opinion of you and they had to reassess, that it turned out that that's all right, that that's a decent feeling. Yeah? So whatever the fixed idea is which is limiting you, you have to stare it in the face and go, well, is that true? Is that me? Who's speaking when this fixed idea comes out? Maybe it's an authority figure, maybe it's not you at all. And is there a way to step just a little bit outside of my comfort zone in the direction that I wish to go, that the little voice wishes to go, without exposing myself to so much risk that it's simply a massive, massive issue? Okay? So the thing is, when you have a conflict between your willpower and your imagination always wins. Right? So you might rationally want to do something, but if your imagination says that there's a disaster waiting, a potential catastrophe, you're going to get laughed out of town, you're going to get ostracized. Imagine that you're just wanting to go and stand on stage, right? Be part of a stage show, but the story inside of you says, you're going to get laughed at. Or remember that time when you were 5 years old and you did something that you were laughed at. Anything like that, which is gripping your imagination. Well, no amount of kind of intellectualizing and preparation is going to get you there. okay? So for me, one of the classic ones was dancing, okay? So I wanted to dance. I wanted to sing and dance and be free and just be kind of full of the joys of spring. But the potential was that I would be laughed out of town. I would look like a total idiot, you know, because I don't know how to dance, because I don't dance, because that's not my thing. It's not my fixed idea. So what do, right? So for me, I went and did lessons. I thought, okay, look, I'll be ridiculous, but I'll be ridiculous in a place where lots of other people are going to be equally ridiculous, and I'll see how that goes, you know? And it turns out I really enjoyed it, and then you continue. So what happens is you take a little step, and then you get feedback, and you go, still here, you know, and then you take another little step and another little step, and you keep on going, and you end up rewriting your story. So no amount of thinking about it is going to rewrite that story. You need feedback. The feedback that then comes back is, oh, I'm more capable than I thought. Or, oh, it turns out that that thing that I thought I couldn't do, I can, right? Or the world isn't the way that I thought it was. You know, another one that I started doing was picking people up with their thumb on the road, right? Desperately trying to find a way into town and making new friends. Yeah, this is something that the previous me would not have done because it's not the done thing, because of some story running inside of my head, which presumably is sort of an egotistical superiority type of story, yeah, or a protection racket. The end result, this is the interesting thing, the end result is that you don't really rewrite your story. This is the crucial point. You end up remembering your story. You end up coming home. You don't reinvent yourself. You might think that you've reinvented yourself. It might feel like you've reinvented yourself. It will probably feel like a whoosh of energy, a freeing, joyous, glowing ball of energy. But then when you look back on it a couple of years later, you'll realize actually that that was there all along, that you were that all along, that what you've done is picked up those massive metal chains and thrown them away. And you are you, right? So you end up expressing your true potential. You end up expressing your absolute wondrous authenticity. You become what you were always destined to be. And that is not a final process. That is something which just develops. It's the journey of life. Suddenly you throw away this kind of judgmental expectation of how everything should be and how your life should be. And instead, you suck the marrow out of the present second, the present moment, knowing that it's fleeting, but that then there's another present moment, and that is equally fructious, but in a different way. Does that make sense? It feels kind of motivational to me, so hopefully it feels motivational to you. The only thing that you need to do to get on this process is by just pushing outside your comfort zone. Now, your comfort zone is your comfort zone for a reason, right? Because it's comfortable. Everything else is slightly uncomfortable. So the point is to find a way of being slightly outside your comfort zone without pushing too far and then seeing the results, yeah? If you can get your imagination on the same side as your judgment and the same side of your critical faculty, so suddenly you can shift whatever the fixed idea is into some massive opportunity, so that your will and your imagination are pointing in the same direction, boy, do you go like a steam train. Or instead, if you can say, okay, so my imagination is flawed, right? I'm not sure about what I think I'm sure about. You can destroy that picture. And so then again, it's like suddenly things are wide open. So you might not necessarily know everything about what it is that you want to know, but suddenly you can start to fragment the fixed idea, which is getting in the way of you doing something different, right? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing you did yesterday and expecting stuff to change, right? Or that's one definition of insanity anyway. You have to do something different, get the feedback, reassess, and open yourself to the joyous nature of this extraordinary universe. All right, I think I'm going to shut up there. That seems sufficiently evangelical for one day. Thank you for watching. I hope this is of interest. If it is, go check out the other videos. There are some which are kind of practical life hacks. There are some which are kind of very hypnotic and Deeply reflective, let's say. And then there's stuff like this, which is somewhere in between the two, sort of thoughts and musings about life. All right, take care. Thank you very much for watching. Subscribe! If it's something that's of interest, write it down below. If it's something which you think is absolutely nonsense, write it down below. And let's create a conversation. You know, my whole purpose in doing these videos is to create a nice world. So let's go and create a nice world. All right, take care. Bye.